Hi, Chris White from Pest Control Installation. So I'd like to talk a little bit about installation challenges. So attics are always fun. One of the things I love about this line of work is that every job's a little bit different. We can always run into some sort of challenges where you have to figure some things out. So I want to cover just a few of the top things that we experience when we're doing some installs, some challenges that occur. So number one, when you arrive at a job site, it's always finding power. The machines do require a 15 and 20 amp plug-in. It's a dual plug-in, so you need to find a 15 amp, which is pretty much anywhere at a house. 15 amps most common. 20 amp gets a little harder. It is a little more power, but you could always find those typically on the outside of a house. Those are typically 20 amps. Anything on the inside of the house that has the GFCI or the ground fault, where you have the two different buttons on there to test and reset. Or you could get creative and get into, say, the washing machine or the garbage disposal. Those are typically wired direct and are on a 20 amp service. So anytime we run into problems with a machine, it's usually power related, because it's the amount of power coming into the machine. So 15 and 20 amp, trying to find those. Now we do have an attic power box. If you haven't seen these, it's on our website. Super awesome thing to have, because all you have to do is you go to the dryer or a range, whichever one. Those are typically 240 volts, but what this box does, a power box, will actually plug into that 240, separate them into two 120s at 24 amps. So now you have plenty of amperage to plug the machine directly into that box. And then you're not going to have to worry about tripping circuits or anything like that, because you'll have plenty of power. So if you experience a lot of those issues with tripping out circuits and things, invest in an attic power box. It's cheaper than a generator. It's not an extra piece of equipment you have to put gas or change the oil in. It's well worth the money. Some other things you can run into is just accessing the attic. So how far away is it, from the driveway? Is it a tall story? Are we going up very high? So always have to park as close as you can to the house in the driveway. You want to let the homeowners know they should move any cars out of the garage and that kind of thing. So just so you don't have to stop the job in the middle to let somebody out of a garage. So you want to get that right up to the house so you can run the hose straight up. Now, how far up are you going? So I often see folks saying, okay, well, if I have to go into the house and go up the stairs, it's going to take a lot of hose, so I'm just going to run it straight up through a window and into the attic. Provided you're not going more than 2 stories, that's acceptable. But most times that you're going to go to a house and try that, I guarantee it's higher than 2 stories. And quite honestly, that airlock or the air blower is not going to be able to blow that air straight up. Now, it will go along the staircases and up on a gradual, but straight up, it just doesn't work that well. Mainly because you have all this material going up into that hose. If you're going 3 to 4 stories, the further away you get from that initial air motor, it's going to lose pressure, and it's going to probably not deliver the material to the attic. So, but run it on an angle upstairs and you're going to be absolutely fine. The other thing you run into is there more than one access point? So this is a challenge, because now you have to kind of plan for 2 areas that you're going to do. So you need to kind of set it into your planning that I'm going to blow from this access in this area, and then I'll need to get over to the other one. Chances are there's 2 accesses because it's a fairly large attic. So just requires a little more planning on how you're going to attack that attic. You don't want to paint yourself into a corner, so to speak. So we just have to do a little planning. The other thing is there any hidden attics? Oftentimes we see that where a roof came down, maybe they did an addition, and now somewhere over in a corner there's an access to another attic. So we want to make sure we're investigating that. Hopefully on the diagrams that the sales team put together, that'll be on there and you'll know that. but we always have to just take a look and make sure in case somebody missed it. Low angles on an attic are always tough too, right? They can be very tight spaces. The one thing we never want to do is in a really tight space where say it's only about 2 feet high. I know most companies won't even go in there because of the tightness of it, but it makes it very challenging to install really any kind of insulation in an attic that size. It does require some additional work where you have to blow it in, but the main thing is you got to keep that air movement, that airflow in there. So at 2 feet, if you're putting in 18 inches, you just have to be really good at putting those baffles in. Now on those angles, it may be tough to get to those baffles to create that air movement. So that needs to be paid attention to too. So on those low angles, you really do have to get in there and make sure that if there's air communicating from the soffit up, you got to put the baffle in so that air communicates above that insulation. On low angles, you may have to use additional baffles to extend that air movement above the insulation. You don't want to bury that in there because areas with no air movement, if you're going to insulate that, is a really bad thing because you create dead airspace, and that will cause moisture issues. On that same note, I often get calls on attics that have foam up along the top of the roof line and nothing on the floor, so we want to put tap down. That's a bad idea. You cannot do that. At that point, when they insulate the roof line with foam, that air in there is now part of the house. So that's a heated and cooled attic space. The minute you insulate the floor, you're cutting it off from the house. And now you're creating that dead air space I spoke about before, which can create its own moisture issues and so forth. So not a good idea, should not be done. If there's foam on the roof line, do not insulate that floor. Some other things that created is damming. So we obviously want to dam around any heat producing appliance. This includes recessed lights, any kind of vent pipes coming through. You want to have a 3-inch space around it. Especially with the recessed lights, we have the recessed light covers available on our website. You put those over the top of that. Then we also have some metal flashing type stuff. It's cut or it's cut on the end so you can put them around things, and it's also pre-folded so that it fits around any kind of angle or any kind of, whether it's round or triangle or whatever it is, you can design it to be able to go around that. So any chimneys, things like that. You want to keep that insulation away. Now, in some areas, it might be a little tighter. If you take an HVAC system, there might be a lot of pipes and things running in. So I think it's a great idea to have some foam board available. I like to have anything that's going to be sturdy enough to stand up. So if you're getting a 4x8 sheet, typically about 2 feet, 3 feet up, you can cut those. You want them about 6 inches above the insulation level. So if you're installing it in at, a 1.5 feet, then you want to have it up about 2 feet so that you have enough space below there and the insulation is not right to the top. That's going to allow, now around the HVACs, it might be a little tight, but foam is really easy to work with. You can cut it with a knife, snap it if you had to, pin it together with a finish nail even, or roofing nail, whatever you have to kind of pin it in there. So that stuff works great. So it's good to have that on hand. Now, any kind of storage area that might be up there, we often see people like to put their Christmas ornaments or whatever it might be stored up into the attic. And it's perfectly acceptable. It's typically down the middle of the attic. The thing you want to do there is, again, creating those dams up along the side, and you can use the foam board. It works great for that. Run that along the edge of the storage area and then blow the insulation up. Remember, again, about 6 inches above the height of the insulation that's going in. You want to have it in there, and then you put that dam on there. It's a really bad idea to feather it. I often see companies are blowing the insulation and so it starts off at the same level as the storage area and then gradually moves up. about 3-4 feet out, then it gets to the level that you're supposed to install. To really give the homeowner the job that you're selling them, you really need to blow it all the way up. So if you're doing a 16 inches up there, it should be 16 inches right up to that dammed area or the storage area, and you can achieve that with that foam board. Now the other thing would be whole house fans. That's something we run into. Whole house fans are great. They're used to pull air through and bring the cooler air from the outside through the house. And we often get questions of, well, is that going to blow the insulation around? No, it's not. Perfectly acceptable. Again, you just want to be about 6 inches below the top of that fan. Typically they're in boxes and they've got a cap on them, so when they turn them on, the cap comes up and they blow that air. It's perfectly acceptable. You just want to blow it up. So about 6 inches below that. If you have to create a dam around it, that's fine too. So those are good ways to do it. Now, it always is important to cover the access point in the attic, whether it's a scuttle hole or a pull down stairs. We have the hatch masters for that. The hatch masters are available in about 7 different sizes. So you want to get the one that's about the same size. If you can get the same size on that opening, great. If not, you want to buy it a little bit larger, because that way you can pleat the edges back, meaning you can kind of fold them in and then staple them, and that'll shrink it down a little bit. You can't really stretch them, but you can shrink them down. So always get the one a little bit larger and then pleat those edges back to make it fit. Beauty is you use that before you install as well, and it eliminates a lot of the dust coming back in the house. Then the homeowner can also get up there because it's got the double zipper and they can access their attic. Well, I hope that helps on the installation challenges. If you have any others, please add them to the comments below. We'll be happy to answer them. Have a great day.